by Embercary's Petriflus to come and discuss a bit of history lesson for some of the students here in Pinnicle. I am going to be talking to you a bit about that and just giving some background, because some of his students he noticed are lacking in historical references and understanding the history of our continent, Rokron. And so, since I'm a resident historian, I'm a fairly skilled historian. I am studied under many of the mages, and also just historians in this area.
Tony took it.
Shut up! Listen, if you wish to go do your bantering and arguing, go do it somewhere else, please. Thank you. Okay, so back to our history. Some people are interested in some of the larger history of our world. I am not a professional in this area, so I cannot really do the longer history of our world. I will just suffice to say that if you are interested, you should check out Artano's work. He's very extensive and a bit too extensive if you ask me. But to suffice to say that as far as the best scholars can figure out, our world was created by an Ur-Dragonon called Werlangamedes. Who was a dragon, or Ur-Dragon, whatever that means. Apparently first created dragons, and then created everything else by speaking the names of the things. This is why Elder Sorcery exists, because the dragons actually spoke the things, and they named everything. So if you're an Elder Sorcerer, you understand the actual name of the thing, therefore giving you some sort of power over it. Well, he created a group of species that mutated and changed over time, and they eventually became all of us. Now, this has really upset many people who felt that elves and dwarves and humans and centaurs and all these different species were very different. They'd been created by their deities or gods, and that they were not related. They would not have some sort of common ancestry, and that was very upsetting to certain historians. But was proved out by the Riddling on the Mountain, which was a discussion that happened between Astendrad, the wizard who made the school of Astendrad, and Svod, the dwarf, one of the main dwarves who colonized Sodland. And they had a riddling called the Riddling on the Mountain, and Fëanor, who they were all talking to the last of the first dragons. And she said that yes, this was indeed true. Now she discussed with them in Elder Sorcery, a language in which you can't lie. So the idea is that if she said it, and she said it in Elder Sorcery, then it must be true, and therefore how could we refute it? Well, nobody did refute it until she died. And then lots of people refuted it and said that no, well, it wasn't accurate. Of course, she's dead, so they didn't know everything. Anyway, so that's the history of the basics of Rokron. Rokron was traditionally humans living here. And then the elves came across the Western Sea due to an epidemic that was wiping out their people called the sun fever epidemic, which basically burned their minds out. They could communicate mind to mind at the time. It was only the ones who were immune to that effect that survived. And they came across, and at the same time, the dwarves were starting to move from the south, from the polar regions coming south, and the hobbits, due to this all called the Age of Ice and Fire, when there's a lot of climate change, they started coming in from below and colonizing the island of Hostor. The centaurs, it's sort of theorized now, with the studies we've been doing, actually are from Teriok. That was their original homeland. And that due to this climate change, it became a desert, and it used to be great grasslands, and they lived out there, but then they moved in, and that's why they're nomadic. They have no real homeland. They just travel around. So the humans are the only ones who really have a real claim to this land. They were originally here, and there were different tribes, the Daggett and the Ilion tribe, and the Temnorians, Desnorians, Odalath, and all of these people were, fairly in what we would call barbaric. At least the elves called them barbaric at the time. They had civilizations and whatnot, but that was the first stage when all these things came together and they sort of made an empire. That age ends in the second age when Grizzard Emdal blows up the Grey Isles. He was an archmage of Shimmermist, a city somewhere in the Grey Isles that was a mage school, much like the mage school we're in right now. And he blew up the Grey Isles with trying to make some sort of spell wheel, which I'm going to get back to. But that ended the first age and headed things down into the Dark Age. The Dark Age was quite long, and it was characterized by a lot of wars between. It was almost 1,200 years. Dark Age, very very long, and the first age is 1,000 years. So the other ages you get after that are relatively short. I'm going to talk about the third, fourth, fifth, and what we now call the sixth age, which are actually very short in comparison to those other ages, the first and second age, which are like 1,000 years or so long. These ones are much shorter. So the Dark Age, you see a lot of wars. Eventually what comes out of that is a group called the Wizards Trade Order. I personally think all the Wizards Trade Order should be arrested for war crimes. With the exception of maybe Laura Whitelocks, who is a recent member. They're organized, the group of mages, and they've been running Rokron for the past 400 or 500 years. At least the last couple ages, and then it's been about 1,300 years since they really took power. But officially, the last 500 years has been their strongest section, and they're run sort of like they all have voting power, and we all send emissaries to their council, and they can vote on things, but they ultimately have the total say. And Desnor is a human province. There's the king in Estrah Keep right now who can decide whether if laws are going to be passed. But the Wizard Trade Order really creates those laws and has the most power over them. And there's 35 members in the Wizard Trade Order, but there's really 5 who are the Archmages, and they're the ones who were in charge of it all. And that's Hamel Lighthand, and he's in charge of black magic. He's a Hobbit. And Solani Newform is Master of Nature Magics, Centaur. Devode Firefist, and he's Master of Flame Magics, and he's a dwarf, and he's an original member. So he's way over his lifespan. He's been on the council for 1,300 years, and he should only live 500, but he's extended his lifespan through magic.
Wow.
Elder sorcerers are known to do that quite often. Eliana Starlight just stepped down really recently in the last couple of years, and she was an original member too, an elf. Of course, 1,300 years to her is not a big deal. And she's now running Selendil and trying to sort out this whole civil war. And then last is Hawks Neverdream, and he's the human, he's a necromancer. Also, not an original member, but still way past his prime. He should have only lived about 100 years, but he's much older than that. Most other provinces are members. Now, as far as the third, fourth, and fifth age go, I'm talking a little bit about what leads up to what's going on right now, and the way I see it. I have certain connections, and I can't tell you what all my connections are, mostly for reasons of I need to protect my sources. So if I tell you where I know everything that I know, then people can find out who don't want me to tell this information and go and find those people and stop them. So I'll tell you what I know, and if you want to know more information, you can either trust me and believe what I'm telling you, or you can not trust me and say, I didn't tell you what my sources are and you don't believe me. That's fine. But unfortunately, there's some sources I won't be able to reveal. I'll reveal what I can. So, this third age really gets picking up when Svolden started stealing our people, hobbits, from Hostor and taking them up to Svolden to use for slave labor. And it was all the rage at the time to make these mithril-plated boots, and all the gladiators wore them. And they were cranking them out as fast as they could and making all kinds of mithril armor, but it's just plated, really. It wasn't really real mithril. It was just they plated it so it would look good, and it would give you some protection for a short period of time, and then it would wear out and you have to buy new ones. So this was really a cheap way to get lots and lots of great, cool-looking stuff that was really useful for a short period of time, and it was a great market. And Svodlin really became really powerful at this time using all their mithril mines. Things were going pretty well, but there was a lot of key events that happened in the Third Age with heroes who were going out trying to, like you guys are, trying to solve problems that they could find. And they sort of encountered a particular dark hero called Gorotok Itak, who was an Urukai. And he was a samurai, and he was wielding Lee Tasashi, which was a legendary daikatana that was made by the Sorokoni martial masters. Very, very powerful weapon. And people wanted to stop him. And he was sort of gathering an army. Well, some heroes went out to stop him, and it was very unfortunate, but the heroes who went were also some Urukai, and they had some items that were just absolutely perfect for him to get. And they died on the way. So they just fell into his hands. One of them was called a Flag of Victory, which gave anyone in your party an ability to take an attack and not die. You could just withstand it, any kind of attack, and then continue on. Several times. you had to give up some of your armor to do it. But he had an army, and they just had a little party. So it's like if you held it, one person in your party held this flag, your whole party got it. Well, he could have one person in his party hold it, and he had an army of Uruk-hai, and they all gained this ability. They also had a dagger, which gave every Uruk-hai in your party a mana. Well, they had a very small party, and there was actually only 2 Uruk-hai in their party, but he had huge. So he took the dagger and suddenly had all of his Uruk-hai had energy that they never had before.
Wow, that's not good.
Yeah, very not good. Well, they started moving down the Black River once they won this battle, and they started moving, just attacking cities as they went. And at the time, in Selendil, things were not going so well. People were defending the city as best they could, but it was getting harder and harder. And eventually he attacked the city. And things that were happening inside the city were the hobbits were disappearing.
Excuse me, Christopher. They're about to do the dinner speech. So, dinner speech.
Shall we take a break?
Yeah, I'll take a break.
Okay.